This video is on two-column proofs. First thing we want to do is know how to set up a proof. For a two-column, you're going to have a T-chart that has two columns in it. The first column is going to be your statement. The second column is your reason. The statement column is where you put your statements, as in your congruency statements, your anything that you can prove. The reason column is why you can prove it. So we always have to make sure we understand that in order for us to say a statement, we have to have the reason why. We can't assume we know why. You have to give an actual reason. In your two-column proofs, you will always start your proofs, or you should always start your proofs, with your givens. So you can think of this as an essay. An essay has an introduction, then it has body paragraphs, and then it has a conclusion. So our introduction will always be the same. The statements will sometimes change, but the reasons will always be the same. So you always list out your givens. This is the information that is already given to you for the proof. So when you write out your statements, you're going to write out the first statement. You're going to number your statements and number your reasons. So our first statement is whatever that first statement is. Then we write out for the first reason, we write the word given. Because this information is given to us. We don't have to assume, we don't have to prove why. We have already been told that this information is in fact true. There can be multiple givens. You would list them out separately. So if there are two givens, you put statement 2, and then you put reason 2 would be given. So if there are multiple givens, they're separated by commas, you put the first statement in the first one, the second in the second one, the third in the third, and so forth and so on. Now if there are only two givens, then you've written your entire introduction. Then we need to go into our body paragraphs. Now in the body, we're still going to be proving things. We're going to be trying to say what is congruent, what is happening, what are we allowed to put, and then we give a reason. Now the reasons we're going to be using are any properties we have learned, any theorems we know, any postulates, and any definitions. Now, postulates are actually axioms or facts. So postulates are already facts, so that's why we're allowed to use them. Definitions, a definition is a fact. It is what it is. Properties are the properties of things, so these are also facts. Theorems are things that can be proven. So once we've used properties, postulates, and definitions to prove the theorems, we're allowed to continue using that theorem. So what we're going to do for the rest of the statements, 3, 4, 5, however many there are, your body paragraph is what you can prove. What you can prove. But again, that means that you have to have a reason. You cannot just say something is congruent and say because I think it's congruent. You actually have to have a reason. So the reason for this, and again, you keep your numbers lined up. Whatever you put over here in your statement, you have to say why. This is the why column. Why are you able to do this? So you might have the definition of perpendicular lines, the definition of a right triangle, segment addition postulate. You could use Pythagorean theorem, reflexive property. Anything that has a property, a theorem, a postulate, or a definition is allowed to be used in this column. You can also use givens. Once you have gone all the way through your body paragraphs and you have enough information to prove whatever it is you're doing. So in this case, we're going to be proving triangles congruent. Well, we need 3 pieces that are congruent. So once we have those 3 pieces, and in a logical order, it must be logical, then we can go to our conclusion. So in our conclusion, so we keep going with our number. I'm going to come down here to 4. So my number 4 is down here, so my reason for will also be down here. I'm not going to have them in different areas. Statement 4, your very last statement, will be whatever your proof says. What your proof says. That does not mean you write out proof. Whatever that statement is, just like in the given statements, you write out the given statements, whatever they are. The last statement will be your proof statement. And for your reason, you do have to come up with a reason. You will have to come up for a reason here. So again, it's a property, theorem, postulate, definition. Generally, this will be some type of postulate or theorem. So you're going to be setting up this proof using 2 columns, and each of the things you have to explain why you know it. You can't just say, oh, well, I can do this because I think it is. You can't assume anything. It's as if you were going to be solving an equation and you want to add 5 to the other side. You have to explain why you can do that. It's the inverse of subtraction. Then you would want to divide. That's the inverse of multiplication. You understand the reason why, you just have to write it. So with these proofs, with 2-column proofs, each step is important. That means you can't leave anything out. You cannot, so please don't assume and don't skip. Just because you think it is a right triangle doesn't mean that it is. You have to prove that it is. You have to give a reason why you know it is. You cannot just assume because an angle looks like it's acute that it is. Don't assume anything. And the last thing about this is if you can't explain why, so if you can't explain why, if you don't know the reason, then you can't use it. You have to have a reason for everything you say. You have to have a reason. So if you don't know the reason for it, you need to come up with another way to figure out what to say or figure out the reason why what you want to say does work.